breaking news, Boris Johnson has sacked Michael Gove, just confirmed by number 10. The man who scuppered the 2016 leadership bid ambitions of Boris Johnson, now fired by Boris Johnson. Earlier today, we understand Michael Gove told Boris Johnson he thought his time was up. It appears that Boris Johnson has decided that he's not going anywhere. Instead, it's Michael Gove who's had to fall on his sword.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we haven't heard anything publicly from Michael Gove, unlike some of his other colleagues. But as you say, there's an understanding that he went in to effectively tell Boris Johnson the time was up. There's history between the two men, as you alluded to. Do we know anything more about how the sacking came about?
So we know that Michael Gove went to Boris Johnson privately. He was trying to avoid the kind of psychodrama that became so iconic those years ago, and instead informed Boris Johnson that he didn't think that he could keep going. Now, it's no secret that Boris Johnson and Michael Gove have increasingly been at odds on critical issues, policy issues in recent weeks, not least Brexit. Boris Johnson taking a more robust approach than Michael Gove was willing to countenance. But Michael Gove has been by Boris Johnson's side since the start, and really at points,
the referendum campaign.
And throughout the referendum campaign, and in government, where he cycled in and out of the very most inner circle. There were moments where Michael Gove was making absolutely critical decisions on things like COVID restrictions and things like that. But over time, Michael Gove, of course, is in the Department for Levelling Up, a department created effectively for him. The two have parted ways increasingly. Michael Gove sounding less and less happy to allies. Now, what's critical is that Michael Gove went first, but he's not the only one to tell Boris Johnson to go. So there's a question about what next. I can also reveal, Sophie, that there is one more resignation to come. If Michael Gove, I am told by senior Downing Street sources, was a sacking, there is also a resignation. Now, the person I just spoke to didn't give the name, but we know a large number of people who went in there to tell Boris Johnson the time is up, some of whom, as they said to me, had letters in their pocket. So any number of contenders. Tonight is not over in terms of big news. But at the moment, Michael Gove is out. So when James Duddridge issued that statement to Sky's John Craig, referring to the fact that there are big appointments, big ministries of state that will be filled with new office holders tonight. Presumably the Department for Levelling Up was one of the departments that he was thinking about, but a dramatic moment for this government.
I mean, it's a big resignation, isn't it? Let's make no bones about it. You know, this is not a junior minister to be sacked. This is a big moment with Michael Gove, even if the two men have drifted apart. I guess my question to you is there a point when it becomes difficult for Boris Johnson to actually fill some of the roles that are becoming vacant? Yes, there's a Prime Minister in number 10, but at the minute it doesn't really feel like there's much of a government.
Well, it depends how far down the parliamentary ranks, bluntly, Boris Johnson is prepared to go in order to fill the senior jobs, with the promise of more money and great prestige. But the risk of a hit to reputation, let's be blunt about it, for joining Boris Johnson's government, there will be some in the 360-odd Conservative MPs willing to take the call from the Prime Minister. He is, after all, the Prime Minister who's insisting he's going nowhere. It comes with the trappings of office. It's a chance to serve your country. A lot of people would be torn over that. The matter of resignation and serving your country, not a simple issue for many MPs. So I think that there is, I think there are probably people willing, but I think the quality of the names might start to. You might see people with less experience. But it's clear that we're on the precipice of quite a defining cabinet shake-up, because if you've got Nadhim Zahawi potentially staying in post, the big question next, I suppose, is if Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, said that she thinks that Boris Johnson should go, as there have been reports, then does that also qualify for the sack? We also know that Grant Shapps told Boris Johnson that he thought his time was up. Now, critically about Grant Shapps, he's another inner circle figure who has been by Boris Johnson's side all the way through and effectively helped fight that first vote of no confidence, has had that spreadsheet, his own private spreadsheet. Famous spreadsheet.
Famous to his own leadership campaign.
Absolutely, famously predicting within one or two what the number was going to be of MPs who are going to vote in that first vote of no confidence. Grant Shapps is saying, you don't have the numbers, Prime Minister. That's a pretty big moment, just because of the loyalty Grant Shapps has shown up until this point. But do these people having gone in prepared to threaten their resignation, then follow through with that threat, or in the face of Boris Johnson staring them down. And what we understand is Boris Johnson is making a very punchy argument. He is saying, I'm going nowhere, you're going to have to drag me out. Sure, there are parliamentary processes that we can use, but I'm intending to reboot the party. Two things, I think, are going to happen. You're going to have a reshuffle, but you're also going to have this dangling by Boris Johnson of an economic plan. That is code for the kinds of tax cuts that so many Conservatives have wanted, but Rishi Sunak wasn't keen on when he was Chancellor, because that would have meant basically borrowing to fund them. Now, with Rishi Sunak gone, effectively, can Nadhim Zahawi start spraying public money in order to shore up Boris Johnson and, bluntly, Nadhim Zahawi, not a man without ambition of his own? So could we see actually the economic direction of this country starting to alter in favour of something even more populist? Boris Johnson questioned on this, of course, earlier today at the liaison committee, didn't deny that we could see a bit of a change of direction.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's very difficult not to look through the lens of all of this about who could be the next leader to take over from Boris Johnson. Because, yes, he is defiant, he says he's not going anywhere. But, of course, as everyone knows, it may not be his decision at the end if the 1922 committee do convene to change the rules and so on. So let's talk about leadership for a bit, shall we? We saw, of course, Sajid Javid give what sounded to many like a leadership pitch in his resignation speech earlier today. We talked about Nadhim Zahawi. Michael Gove is a bit of an operator, isn't he? And perhaps his own leadership ambitions may have been quashed, but he certainly strikes me as the kind of man who, now he's on the backbenches, could be involved in some of the manoeuvrings that are almost certainly going on.
Yes, because there's been so much turmoil over really all the years back to 2016. There are an awful lot of kingmakers on the Conservative backbenches. Michael Gove is one. He's well connected in parts of the party. Of course, a leadership contender himself. Gavin Williamson, probably not in the race, but again will be seen as somebody pulling strings behind the scene. But when you get to it, there's a question about who the main contenders might be. Nadhim Zahawi, I think, is one. But you've also got a question of who will represent the right. Could that be potentially Suella Braverman? Steve Baker was today talking about throwing his hat in the ring. And then from the other wing of the party, Jeremy Hunt, former health secretary, also a leadership contender, although he wouldn't do that well, recent polling suggests. When we get to this contest, going to be a huge field. It's going to be incredibly messy, define the direction of the Conservative Party. That's possibly why we do have some nerves about MPs pressing the button and going into it.
Fascinating stuff. Sam, thank you very much for bringing us that breaking news. Sam Coates there with the line that Michael Gove has been sacked